the Awakening. The star charts called it Sector 47 Gamma, but every spacer in the Galactic Federation knew it by another name, the Dead Zone. At the center of this forbidden region floated a blue world that had been sealed away for 12 millennia, its surface hidden behind automated defense satellites that had long since gone dark. Earth, the forbidden planet, waited in silence. Captain Vex Thor of the Salvage Guild cared nothing for ancient laws. The insectoid commander flexed his forearms as he guided his vessel, the Prophet's Edge, past the dormant warning beacons. His crew of 20 scavengers had traveled 6 months to reach this place, chasing rumors of technological treasures that could make them wealthy beyond measure. The Federation's quarantine had lasted long enough that most species had forgotten why it existed in the first place. His navigator, a floating jellyfish-like creature named Sulith, pulsed nervously with bioluminescent concern. Captain, the restricted zone protocols are still technically active. If we're detected, the penalties could include permanent exile or worse. Vex Thor's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Federation patrols this sector once every century. The last inspection was 87 years ago. We have time. He leaned forward in his command throne, his compound eyes gleaming. Besides, do you know what a single piece of pre-collapse human technology sells for on the black market? Enough to buy a moon. The ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, cutting through clouds that had seen no spacecraft in thousands of years. Below them stretched vast oceans, overgrown continents where nature had reclaimed the ruins of cities. Vex Thor had spent years piecing together fragments of information from restricted archives, following breadcrumbs that led to coordinates in the northern hemisphere. According to the data he'd stolen, something immense lay buried beneath the ice sheets of what ancient maps called Greenland. The Prophet's Edge landed on a glacier that concealed more than frozen water. Scanners revealed a massive structure hidden below, composed of materials that didn't match anything in their databases. Vex Thor assembled a team of 8 and led them down through a natural crevasse that descended into manufactured corridors of black metal. The facility was enormous. Tunnels stretched in every direction, lit by emergency lights that still functioned after 12,000 years. The walls were covered in human writing that their translators struggled to interpret, mixed with symbols that seemed to shift when observed directly. One crew member, a mammalian Quellan named Drath, ran his scanner across a wall panel and stumbled backward in shock. Captain, these readings are impossible. The energy signatures suggest this facility is still active. Not dormant, active. There's a power source deeper in the structure that rivals a small star. Vex Thor's excitement grew. Active technology meant functional technology, and functional human artifacts were worth 10 times more than broken ones. He pushed deeper into the facility, his greed overriding his caution. After an hour of descent, they reached a vast chamber that took their breath away. The room was circular, perhaps a kilometer in diameter, with a domed ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. Strange machinery lined the walls, humming with barely contained energy. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, showing star maps and data streams in languages none of them could read. But it was the center of the room that drew their attention. A crystalline pod stood on a raised platform, surrounded by a field of pale blue light. Inside, perfectly preserved, lay a human figure. He was tall, perhaps 2 meters, with dark skin and close-cropped hair that had turned silver. He wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal, flowing across his body like liquid mercury. Even in stasis, there was something intimidating about him, something that made Vex Thor's primitive hindbrain scream warnings of danger. Drath approached the pod cautiously, his scanner working overtime. Captain, the life signs are active. This human is alive. He's been in suspended animation for... The Quellan's voice faded as he processed the data. For 11,742 years. Impossible, Sulith whispered. No stasis technology can maintain cellular integrity for that long. The neural pathways would degrade, the organs would fail. But the scanners didn't lie. The human in the pod was alive, his heart beating once every 30 seconds, his brain showing minimal but steady activity. Vex Thor circled the platform, examining the pod from every angle. There was an inscription at the base, and his translator finally managed to parse the ancient script. Sentinel Prime. First Guardian of Earth. Last Defender of Humanity. May he sleep until the stars remember what was lost. Guardian. The word sent a chill through Vex Thor's exoskeleton. He'd heard that word before, buried in the fragments of restricted history he'd uncovered. The Guardians had been human warriors, enhanced and augmented to fight in the War of Convergence when the Void Devourers had threatened to consume the galaxy. They'd been unstoppable, terrifying, powerful beyond measure. But they'd also been the reason the Federation had destroyed human civilization. Vexthor reached out and touched the pod's surface. It was warm, humming with energy. A control panel materialized under his hand, displaying symbols that rearranged themselves into something his translator could understand. One word pulsed in red: wake. He should have left then. He should have gathered his crew and fled back to his ship. But greed clouded his judgment. A living guardian would be worth more than all the artifacts in the galaxy combined. Some collector, some weapons developer, some military organization would pay any price for access to this being. His claw pressed the control. The reaction was immediate. The entire facility began to vibrate. The machines along the walls roared to life, displays flooding with data. The blue light around the pod intensified, became blinding. Vexthor stumbled backward as alarms began screaming in a dozen different tones. His crew was shouting, running for the exits, but it was too late. The pod opened. Steam hissed out as the seal broke. The light faded. And the human inside took a breath, his first breath in nearly 12,000 years. His eyes opened, and they were gold, glowing with an inner light that had nothing to do with the facility's illumination. He sat up slowly, his movements deliberate, and turned to look at Vexthor. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder in the enclosed space. "What year is it?" Vexthor's translator struggled with the archaic dialect, but managed to convey the meaning. By Federation standard calendar, it's year 11,742 post-convergence. The human's golden eyes widened. For a moment, something like grief crossed his face. Then it hardened into an expression of cold determination. He rose from the pod, and Vexthor realized just how large he was. Not just tall, but broad, muscular, radiating a physical presence that made the insectoid captain want to prostrate himself in submission. "Where is my world?" the human asked. "Where are my people?" Vexthor couldn't speak. His translator was Sulith, who floated forward despite visibly trembling. "Earth is quarantined. Has been for 12 millennia. The human civilization collapsed. The survivors, they reverted. They live in primitive tribes now, scattered across the continents. No technology. No space travel. No memory of what they once were." The human was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to the nearest console and placed his hand on it. The entire facility responded to his touch. Holographic displays erupted around him, filling the air with data. He read it all, his golden eyes moving faster than any organic being should be able to process information. What he saw there changed him. Vexthor watched the human's expression shift from confusion to understanding to rage. Pure, incandescent rage. "You did this," the human said quietly. "The Federation. You destroyed my people." "We didn't," Vexthor started, but the human raised his hand and the captain's words died in his throat. "I can see it all here. The records your species tried to erase. The conspiracy. The biological weapon designed to destroy human cognitive function. The blockade that prevented the Guardians from returning to save Earth. The lies you told the galaxy about a civil war, about self-destruction." The human's voice grew colder with each word. "You feared us. So you murdered us." He touched the console again and the entire facility shuddered. Deep beneath them, massive systems began to activate. Vexthor felt it through the floor, a thrumming power that grew stronger with each passing second. "What are you doing?" the captain managed to ask. The human looked at him with those terrible golden eyes. "My name is Cale Winters. I was the first guardian, the prototype, the template from which all others were created. I was put in stasis to be awakened only in humanity's darkest hour." He smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "It appears that hour has come." The facility erupted with light. Energy surged through conduits that hadn't been active in 12,000 years. Above them, across the planet, defense installations that had been buried and forgotten began to wake. Satellites in orbit activated, their weapon systems powering up. Hidden bunkers opened their doors. Automated factories deep underground began producing equipment from designs that predated the Federation itself. And from the facility, a signal burst forth. It traveled faster than light, carried by quantum entanglement across the entire galaxy. Every Federation world received it simultaneously. Every military installation, every government building, every civilian communication network. The message was simple, transmitted in every known language. "This is Guardian Prime Cale Winters. I am awake. Earth is no longer undefended. To the species of the Galactic Federation, you committed genocide against humanity. You destroyed a civilization because you feared what we might become. That crime will not go unanswered. I'm coming for you. And I am bringing humanity with me. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and military headquarters, in research stations and colony worlds, beings of 1,000 different species stood frozen in terror. The eldest among them, those who remembered the Guardian Wars, knew what this meant. The younger ones would learn soon enough. Vexthor tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Kale moved. The Guardian crossed the distance between them faster than thought, his hand closing around the captain's thorax. He lifted the insectoid off the ground and looked into his compound eyes. "You're going to take me to the Federation Council," Kale said. "You're going to help me deliver my message personally. And then I'm going to let you live so you can tell everyone what you saw here. So they know what's coming." He released Vexthor, who collapsed to the floor gasping. The Guardian turned to the rest of the crew. "Return to your ship. Leave this planet. Spread the word, Earth remembers." They ran. They fled through the corridors back to the Prophet's Edge, and launched into orbit with desperate speed. As they climbed toward the stars, they saw it, Earth's surface glowing with thousands of lights as ancient installations awakened. Defense satellites forming geometric patterns in orbit. Energy shields beginning to coalesce around the entire planet. And standing at the entrance to the facility watching them go was Kale Winters. Even from orbit, even through the ship's sensors, they could feel his presence. Could feel the terrible purpose that drove him. The Guardian had returned. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Reckoning. The Grand Council of the Galactic Federation convened in emergency session for the first time in 3,000 years. The chamber was a massive sphere, with seats for representatives from all 800 member species arranged in concentric rings. At the center floated a holographic display that currently showed Earth, surrounded by the energy signatures of its awakening defense grid. High Chancellor Mordeth, a crystalline being whose body refracted light into rainbow patterns, called the session to order with a pulse of directed sound. "We have all received the transmission. We have all seen the data from the Prophet's Edge. The question before us is simple. What do we do about the Guardian?" The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted in hundreds of languages, their translators struggling to keep up. Fear permeated the air, thick enough to taste. A reptilian delegate from the Saurian hegemony rose, his scales flushed red with aggression. "We do what we should have done 12,000 years ago. We glass the planet. We turn Earth into molten slag and make sure nothing survives. That's genocide." A mammalian representative objected. "We already committed one genocide against humanity. Do we compound that crime with another? It's not genocide if they're already extinct," the Saurian hissed. "What lives on Earth now are primitives, animals with human faces. And this Guardian is a relic, a weapon that should have been destroyed. We finish what our ancestors started." An ancient being called Eldest Voice spoke from the upper tiers. It was old beyond measure, a member of the Eternals who had witnessed the birth of stars. "You speak of things you do not understand, young one. I was alive during the Guardian Wars. I watched these humans fight." The chamber fell silent. "A single Guardian destroyed a Void Devourer high fleet of 10,000 ships," Eldest Voice continued. 3 Guardians held the Cygnus sector against an invasion that should have consumed 50 worlds. 10 Guardians infiltrated the Devourer homeworld and detonated its star. The ancient being's voice grew heavy with remembered fear. "We didn't kill humanity because they were weak. We killed them because they were strong. Because in 1,000 years, they would have surpassed us all. Because the Guardians terrified us. Then we send everything," the Saurian delegate declared. "Every ship, every weapon. We overwhelm him with numbers." Mordetha's body flashed with urgent colors. "Fleet Command, what are our military options?" Admiral Treshkol, a 6-armed warrior from the Hexapod Dominion, materialized as a hologram in the center of the chamber. "We've assembled Battle Group Omega in Sector 40. 500 capital ships, 3,000 support vessels, 2 million ground troops. The largest armada the Federation has deployed in 8,000 years. We can reach Earth in 72 hours. "And your assessment of success?" the Chancellor asked. The Admiral's 6 arms moved in a gesture of uncertainty. "Unknown. We have no reliable data on Guardian capabilities. The ancient records were destroyed and what survives is contradictory. Some reports are clearly exaggerated. No single being could do what they describe." "Those reports," Eldest Voice said quietly, "were not exaggerated." Mordeth made a decision. "Deploy Battle Group Omega. Establish a blockade around Earth. Do not engage unless provoked. We will attempt diplomatic contact first." "Diplomacy with a weapon?" the Saurian scoffed. Diplomacy with a person, more death corrected. The Guardians were human. They could think, feel, choose. We will give Cale Winters a choice. Stand down and accept exile or face annihilation. The vote was called. The majority supported the Chancellor's plan. Battle Group Omega received its orders and began the journey to Earth. Cale stood on the surface of Greenland, watching the stars through eyes that could perceive wavelengths far beyond human normal. His Guardian enhancements allowed him to see the Armada approaching, even from light years away. 500 capital ships, glowing with the energy signatures of their drives. They were bringing war to his doorstep. He'd spent the last 72 hours exploring what remained of Earth, traveling to the scattered tribes of humans who were his distant descendants. They lived in small groups, hunting and gathering, with no memory of the stars they'd once touched. The virus the Federation had deployed had not killed them, but it had stolen everything that made them human. Their intelligence, their creativity, their potential, all locked away behind genetic barriers. But Cale could change that. He'd accessed the Guardian Archive, a repository of knowledge that included the genetic templates for baseline humanity. He'd also found something else, a failsafe protocol designed by the original Guardian project. A way to reverse the damage, to unlock the dormant potential in every human on Earth. The process would take years. Generations perhaps. But humanity would rise again. First, though, he had to deal with the Federation. Cale placed his hand on a control node that rose from the ice. The entire planet's defense network responded to his command. Satellites realigned themselves. Energy weapons charged. Shields generators that had been buried beneath oceans and deserts began to power up, creating a barrier around Earth that could withstand a stellar supernova. His armor flowed across his body, responding to his thoughts. The Guardian suit was more than protection. It was a tool that amplified his already superhuman abilities. It could manipulate gravity, phase through matter, generate energy fields, and interface with technology through quantum entanglement. Combined with his enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes, it made him the most dangerous weapon ever created. The Federation was about to remember why. Battle Group Omega emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Admiral Treshkol studied the tactical displays with growing unease. The defense grid around Earth was unlike anything in current Federation technology. Energy signatures that should have been impossible. Weapon systems that predated the Council itself. "Hail the Guardian," he ordered. A communication channel opened. Cale's face appeared on the main screen, his golden eyes calm and focused. "Guardian Winters," the Admiral began, "I am Admiral Treshkol of the Federation Defense Fleet. I am authorized to offer you terms." "Terms?" Cale's voice was quiet, almost gentle. "What terms could you possibly offer me?" "Exile. Safe passage to any uninhabited system of your choosing. Supplies, resources, whatever you need to build a new life. In exchange, you leave Earth and never threaten Federation worlds." Cale smiled. "You want me to abandon my people?" "Again. The humans on Earth are not your people. They're primitives who share your genetics but nothing else. There's nothing you can do for them." "You're wrong," Cale said. "I can give them back what you took. I can restore their minds, unlock their potential, help them rebuild. Given time, humanity will rise again." The Admiral's arms tensed. "The Federation cannot allow that." "I know," Cale replied. "That's why you brought your fleet. You're hoping to kill me before I can act. You want to finish the genocide your ancestors started." His expression hardened. "You should have brought more ships." The channel closed. Treshkol stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. "All ships, combat formation. Prepare to engage. Target the defense satellites first, then the surface installations." 500 capital ships spread out across the solar system, their weapons charging. Energy cannons that could vaporize mountains. Missiles that carried antimatter warheads. Rail guns that fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Against one human. "Fire," the Admiral ordered. Space erupted with violence. Thousands of weapons discharged simultaneously, filling the void with destruction. The barrage should have overwhelmed any defense, should have cracked Earth's shields and reduced the surface to molten slag. Instead, the shields held. Not just held, they didn't even flicker. The antimatter detonations that should have destroyed cities left no mark on the energy barrier. The railgun projectiles bounced off harmlessly. The energy cannons were absorbed and dispersed. And then the defense satellites returned fire. Beams of coherent energy lanced through space, targeting the Federation ships with impossible precision. Shields that should have stopped any attack failed instantly. Hulls designed to withstand supernova radiation were pierced like paper. In the first 5 seconds of engagement, the Federation lost 47 ships. Evasive maneuvers. Treshkol screamed. All ships scatter pattern Omega. But the satellites tracked them perfectly. No matter how the ships dodged, the weapons found them. Another 30 vessels exploded in quick succession. And then Kale arrived. He came from Earth, launching himself into space with a burst of gravitic energy. His armor protected him from the vacuum, provided oxygen, regulated temperature. He flew between the ships at speeds that violated physics, his body wrapped in fields that allowed him to survive accelerations that would liquefy organic tissue. He reached the first battle cruiser and didn't slow down. He phased through the hull and materialized in the reactor core. His hands touched the containment fields, and he sent a pulse of disrupted energy through them. The reactor went critical. He phased out just as the ship exploded. Onto the next one. And the next. And the next. Treshkol watched in horror as his fleet died. Kale was moving through the ships like a force of nature, impossible to track, impossible to stop. Weapons that tried to target him hit nothing but empty space. Ships that tried to ram him found he'd already phased through their hulls. In 20 minutes, Battle Group Omega lost 200 ships. Retreat, the Admiral ordered. All vessels emergency jump. Get out of this system. The surviving ships tried to flee, their hyperdrives charging desperately. But Kale had anticipated this. He'd uploaded a virus into their navigation systems when he'd infiltrated the first ship. One by one, the hyperdrives failed. The ships were trapped in normal space, unable to escape. Kale appeared on the Admiral's bridge, phasing through the hull without triggering alarms. The crew drew weapons, but he moved faster. In 3 seconds, every armed being was unconscious, their weapons destroyed. Only Treshkol remained standing. I could kill you all, Kale said quietly. I could destroy every ship in this fleet in the next hour. But I'm not going to. Why not? The Admiral asked, his voice shaking. Because I want you to go home. I want you to tell the Federation what happened here. I want them to know that Earth is defended. That humanity will rise again. And if any species tries to stop us, if anyone threatens my people. Kale's golden eyes blazed with terrible promise. I will do to their worlds what you did to mine. He placed his hand on a console and uploaded data directly into the ship's computers. I'm giving you back your navigation systems. Take your surviving ships and leave. Don't come back. Kale phased out, disappearing as quickly as he'd arrived. Treshkol collapsed into his command chair, his 6 arms trembling. Around him, the bridge crew was waking up, confused and terrified. He looked at the tactical display. 300 ships remained from the original 500. 300 ships that had been effortlessly defeated by a single human. Set course for Federation space, he ordered quietly. Maximum speed. As the battered fleet limped away from Earth, Kale returned to the surface. He stood once more on the ice of Greenland and looked up at the stars. The battle had been decisive, but he knew it was only the beginning. The Federation would regroup, would try again with different tactics. But they would fail. Because Kale wasn't alone anymore. Deep beneath the ice in the Guardian archive, he'd found stasis pods. Dozens of them. Other Guardians who'd been placed in suspended animation, waiting for the day they'd be needed. He'd begun waking them one by one. Soon, humanity would have its protectors again. And then the real work would begin. Healing the damage done to human minds, rebuilding civilization, reclaiming humanity's place in the stars. The Federation had tried to erase humanity from existence. They'd failed. And now they would face the consequences. Kale Winters, Guardian Prime, looked toward the future and smiled. The galaxy had forgotten what humans could do, what they could become when given the chance. He would remind them. And this time humanity would not fall.